Welcome to another episode. She's More Than Rubies. My name is Oli. I'm your host this morning. Today, I'm honored to have a very special guest joining us today, Kenina Latu. Kenina
Hi.
Latu, hi. Hi, Kenina, all the way from UK. Kenina has an amazing story to share with us today. She is one of the very few athletes to have represented Australia in two codes, and her journey has taken her from the sporting field to family, life, faith, and ministry. Today, Kenina and her husband are serving in ministry in the UK, or United Kingdom, and we're excited to hear about the lessons, challenges, and blessings God has taught her through each season of life. Kenina, thank you so much for joining me today. It is a privilege to have you on.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel privileged that you've even asked me to be on your podcast, so thank you.
Kenina, just for those that may not know your story, can you tell us a little bit about your rugby journey? Just something briefly. And where has life taken you, since? Yeah.
Yep.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up playing sport my whole life. I was always in some sort of like team sport growing up. There was never a weekend where we weren't either netball or rugby or touch or something. We played majority of our childhood playing netball. And then one of my friends, I think I knew her from netball, she approached us and she asked me randomly, did you want to come and try rugby? Like come and play for us on a weekend? So me and my sister, we were like, oh yeah, why not? And because we play Oztag and touch already, so we had our boots and we had gear. So we just rocked up one day. I didn't even have a training session. And I'm pretty sure either me or my sister, one of us got player of the match that one game, and we never stopped playing since that day. But yeah.
Yeah. And now because you're not playing anymore, so you're married now and tell me a bit about your family.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I only played rugby for a very short time. I wouldn't consider myself an athlete. I was talking to my husband about this and he's like, "No, you are." And I was just like, "Well, I don't know." So I played I think maybe 5 years or something, and I got to represent New South Wales. I played for Australia. I got to travel and stuff. So it was really good. And then my husband was also coming up in his career making
Yeah.
the first grade, and we both were quite competing quite high in our sports. And
Yeah.
then I think it was a year or 2 before the year that we got married, that I just said, "I'm gonna quit, I'm not playing anymore." And it was mainly I remember being at church after prayer one time, and I think I didn't hear an audible voice, but I definitely felt it, like, the time that you're giving to rugby, and it really shows, where my priorities were, and I was missing out on a lot of things that I knew were happening on the weekend, and when I was away, on training camps, or if I'd go away for a weekend to play, I would miss out that weekend of church, or when there was things scheduled on for youth, I would miss that. So I did feel that, whether it's a personal conviction, but I did feel it in that the time that I was giving to rugby, I knew that it would be much better placed in the kingdom. And I just made that choice one day, and I didn't talk to no one about it. I didn't talk to my parents. I just knew that it wasn't something that anyone was going to talk me out of. And then I just
Yeah.
quit that year. That was the last time I ever played. But my husband, his career, he did really well, and his career's taken us to a different state.
Mm.
We've had to move from New South Wales to Gold Coast, and then now we're here in the UK. This is originally why we came here, was for his rugby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have beautiful kids too, eh? You got 2 kids?
Yeah. We've got Lennox, he's just turned 8. The 25th of May was his birthday. He turned 8 years old. Mila, she is 6. She turned 6 in March. So, yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. So, I mean, you've already answered my question about how you started off with rugby
Mhm.
and also involved in sports. So you're saying that you started playing netball.
Yeah.
So all your siblings are also involved in sports right now. Like you've got your sister
Yeah.
Bibi
Yeah.
representing Australia,
Yeah.
which she's done really, really well.
Yeah.
And also Tay, yeah,
Yeah.
she also played rugby.
Yeah. Phoebe is definitely the athlete. I'll 100% give her the credit. She's done the best out of all of us. She's still currently playing. She's gonna come and
Yes.
visit me at the end of next week because 'cause they've just won the World Premiership
Yeah.
over in Bordeaux. So
Yeah.
she's over this side of the world, so she's gonna come and see me next week.
Yeah.
Tamer, she played under 18 Olympics for the
Yeah.
Aussie Sevens team, so she did really
Mm.
well. Yeah, we all kinda grew up playing sport, and I think it was rugby that Phoebe was always watching us on the sideline because she's much
Mm.
younger than my sister and Tamer and I. She kind of she always says, "Well, I wanna be like my sisters," so she's just kind of watched on the sideline as a little kid, and then now we're kind of living through her because she's really gone
Mm,
above and beyond in her athletic career.
that's
And then Tame
amazing.
yeah, but yeah, and then Tamer got injured one year, and she never come back right after that, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And with you guys all being like playing sports, as in like rugby, where was the inspiration from? Like, I know it was you started off playing netball with your friends,
yeah,
but your
yeah,
parents, was that inspired by your parents, or was
yeah.
it influenced there by your parents, your dad and mom? And
In hindsight now, I'm like 100% we were just girls trying to, like, make our dad proud. My dad
yeah,
he
like
has
every
all girls, and he watched quietly on the sideline when we played netball year after year. And then the first time that we played rugby, it was like, I don't know, he just, like, was excited to, like, come and watch us play, and then every game he'd be there. He'd be at our
yeah,
trainings. He'd then bring my uncles and, like, we'd all have our all of our family coming to watch, and then we ended up getting my auntie coming to play in the team as well. But
yeah,
definitely, I think there was some sort of aspect in it that made me feel happy that my dad was proud of us because we were playing rugby, and we grew up watching the All Blacks play. Like, that's what we
mm,
watched. Like, I knew more
mm.
about rugby union than the NRL or league because that's what we grew up watching. So, yeah.
Yeah. And the younger girls, even like for my daughter Hannah,
Mhm.
they really look up to, great examples like you guys, Nina, and your sister Tay. So
Yeah.
there's one of the questions that I actually have here that was actually from my husband.
Yeah.
That we do have a few young people in our church who are involved in the pathways of NRL and NRW.
Yeah.
As someone who has competed in an elite level, that's yourself, is now serving in ministry, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to a young athlete who is pursuing a career in professional sport? What advice would you know, give them?
Yeah. I would say it's quite hard because I would I never got to rugby has come such a long way since the last time I played. I wasn't in it as a full-time career. I was always working alongside on a Monday to Friday and then would go to trainings in the afternoon, or we'd have, like, training camps away, like, once or twice a month. So, there wasn't really the money or the career in it when I was playing. So a lot of the things I see my sister struggling with, because she's in it full time, that's her full-time job, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I saw it with my husband, that was his full-time career, like, he was going to his full-time job training all day from Monday to Friday, and then on the weekend too with his games. So, it's hard to give the aspect of, well, you can't say, "Well, I'm not coming to training," or, "Well, I can't go to this game because I have church," because 'cause you'll just get dropped from the team. Like, that's what would happen.
Yeah, yeah,
I saw from the perspective of being a wife to my husband when after a game was on, if they had a midday game on a Sunday, and at this time, POS was with it. We still had the nighttime PM services. So as soon as his game finished, he already had that agreement with his coach that as soon as my
yeah,
game's done and we're off the field, we have our team talk. I want to make it to my church service by 6:30 PM or 6 PM. And the coach had
yeah,
the agreement with Lonnie. He was like, "Well, that's what you value. That's really important to you. Once team talk is done, you can get showered first and you can leave." And a lot of the time, that's what he would do. I remember we were at youth camp one time and he didn't wanna miss youth camp, but he was playing that weekend. So I remember he planned to make sure that he'd be able to try and attend and then still prioritize his game, but still try and make the time to not miss out on what he could do, what was in his control that he could make and attend. It's hard because, like I said, like, you could just turn around and say, "Well, I'm not coming because I'm going to church," but you would get dropped. Like, that is the reality of what it is.
yeah,
My husband purposed it in his heart, though, to really pursue God in everything that he did, and whenever we had to move teams or whatever, when we had to move or whatever our plannings were, we would always speak to whoever the authority our pastor was. Under his authority,
yeah,
we would talk to everything about him and about what was happening to him, about, like, potential team moves and things like, "This is currently what's happening. We don't want to leave," or like when we had to go to the Gold Coast, we had to make sure that there was a church there for us because that was still our priority, that we would try to center everything around church, God, and then that was his job. So I don't know how girls maybe these days look at it to say that I want to make the team so bad, I don't want to get cut, but at
yeah,
the cost of, maybe missing out and not prioritizing something that is eternal.
yeah. So
It
it's
is
like a
it is a tough
balance, right?
one. It is a
To have
yeah,
a
it's a
balance,
balance.
eh?
Yeah, 100% it's a balance, and I think where you are now, you have to ask the Lord and just be honest with yourself that if it's gonna cost me more than it's worth, I would say, what your priorities, I think, would determine what really is the focus of your heart, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one that like a full-time athletic career and then trying to
Yeah.
prioritize
Yeah.
work, family life. It is
Yeah.
hard. I had to
Yeah.
try watch it from the sideline with my husband and it was difficult. Yeah. I don't know if that answers it.
Thank you for that, Nina. I also have another question I want to ask. During the time when you were representing Australia, was there ever like a particular game or a moment or an achievement that
Mhm.
stands out, that's one of your highlights? And what made that experience so special for yourself?
There was the tour that we did Tri Nations tour in New Zealand, and it was between us, I think it was Canada and New Zealand. I got to run on. I come off the bench when I played my first game, my first cap against New Zealand, and that was just awesome because I had my mum, my sisters, my dad, my aunties all in the grandstand in New Zealand, and we were playing, and I could hear their screams the loudest, and that was cool. And then after that game, I got to start against Canada as well the following game, and that was just cool as well because I had all my family there. They had flown over to come and watch me play, so that was cool. But yeah, the I think I remember speaking about this at youth one time. The highlight of that whole tour was just being around the girls and just seeing what life would be like touring around with a team. Because before that, you've got to pay for you pay for your travels, you pay for your uniform, you're paying for yourself to be there. This was the first time I'd ever experienced they're paying for your flights there, they're paying for your accommodation and all that. So it was a cool feeling to feel like, oh, this is like kind of like not made it in a way, but it was my first experience of that. So that was a really cool tour for me to be a part of.
Oh, that's amazing. So that was your highlight when you
Yeah,
were
I think
playing
so.
for
Yeah, yeah,
Australia. That's excellent. Thank you for that. Sometimes the greatest lessons from sport about winning games. Looking back, what are some of the values and the life lessons that rugby has taught you and that
yeah.
you would still carry, that it would carry you through where you are today? Were there some positives that you got out of rugby?
Yeah, there's a couple. Definitely the one percenters as a player and as a team as a whole, you should be always told by your coach that the one percenters matter more than anything. And when I say like one percenters, I mean like executing every pass, like making sure every pass is accurate, like out in front at chest level, it's a good pass, making sure that you're not missing any tackles, making sure you're the first one up off your feet in a ruck, going through a clean out through to completion and rolling out as fast as you can, getting up as fast as you can to get back onto the defensive line. All of these little one percenters actually determine the success of a team. And a lot of people would think like, oh, it's a one-away try. Like, you get like an intercept try and you've got a field length try. Like those are the things, you know. But those don't actually win games and those don't determine your team's success. And it always comes down to how accurate yous are at always
Yeah,
executing all these little one percenters. And these one percenters also aren't like you don't get pats on the back after every game like, wow, you got back on side every single time. Like you never let your lags and you were up on your feet so fast. Like no one pats you on the back for any of these one percenters. But that is what will determine whether you are an effective player or you're lazy, whether your team will win the premiership or they're just rocks and diamonds, you know? So carrying that aspect through my whole life, it's like the one percenters in your life, like in your marriage, like all little one percenters in being a parent to your children, like seeing all these little one things that these things do matter. Your one percenters in your spiritual walk with the Lord. We love to have the emotional highs of things and like going to conferences and, big breakthroughs on the altars. And those are great, but it's actually your one percenters, your line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, like your understanding of scripture, how much you value making sure that you're committing your time to the word every day. You're
mm,
strengthening your relationship with Jesus, how you're communicating with him, how you're speaking with him daily. All these little things that obviously go unseen by a lot of people. And you don't get pats like the same thing. You don't get a pat on the back for these things to be like, well done. Like, these things aren't for the big show, like the big runaway tries and all of that. It's all of the foundational solid building. And then all the other stuff comes up after that. But that's all of what the Lord would take care of and what he can draw and grow in you when you don't even know that these things are happening because you're just focused on making sure those building blocks and those fundamentals in your game as a player, but also your walk with God and your relationship with Him and what you know about what His word says and who He is. All of these little one
Wow.
percenters, everything, like that's what I would say is when you can
Mm,
appreciate how important these one percenters are and that they're not optional because a missed tackle could be that game that lets you down and you lose,
mm,
That could be that missed try that you let in just because you slacked off for that one moment, even though you had a
yeah.
great game, 99% of the game, but that little 1% is what could have drawn the line on whether you lost or you won. And that's like, yeah, with my kids, I don't let them get away with little things. And you might think you're really harsh on your kids, but I nip these little things in the butt when I can because I know what I'm trying to teach them and lay in their foundation and their understanding will pay off in the long run in
I
the
love
rest of
that.
their life. Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah,
That's a
definitely
really
that.
good one
Yeah. One
to
percenters are
take.
definitely,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I love that, Kanina. You know how you use that from your rugby experience and you brought it
Mhm.
into, your life now. You're a working woman. And what do you do for work, Nina?
Yeah, so I work in construction. I'm a quantity surveyor at a construction company. We put all of the like gas, water, and electric in the ground for like all the new developments and the new builds. And then we
Yeah.
connect them up from the mains into the houses. So we do the mains and then the services into the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So it's
you actually
construction.
run a team. So you have your own team?
No, I wouldn't say I run a team. No, I'm part of a team. I don't run a
Yeah.
team though. No.
Yeah. I love that what you shared about the one percenters.
Hmm.
That's a really good one. Thank you for that, Kenina. So now, like, you've talked a little bit about your rugby journey. I wanted to ask also just a little bit about your marriage and
Hmm.
family. You did touch a
Yeah.
little bit about Lani's career talk about your just like share to me or tell us becoming on now your wife and mom. How has that changed your perspective on life
Mhm.
after rugby?
A lot of my first kind of year or two in our marriage was just kind of dictated by where Lani was and what he was doing with his rugby and his teams. Because we first got we were married in 2016, and our plan was to be in Sydney, Australia, for the rest of our lives. We were never going to leave. That was where we were going to be. We built our house when we got married. Our family were all in Sydney. It was never a thought that we would ever leave or he would ever have to go into a different team. So yeah, a lot of my life in the early stage was kind of just dictated where he was going, and I was just going where he was. And obviously his career and everything was, not more important, but he was like the priority. Like wherever he went, that's where I was going to go because it was his rugby career was more important. I was working for a home builder at the time, so our first year was, yeah, we're at Penrith Panthers, and then all of a sudden the next year we've been married a year, moved interstate, and that was that was shocking to my system. Like I would never dream to move into a different state to away from where my mum and dad were. But a lot of the times we're just like, okay, well, if it's God's will and there's nowhere else for us to go, or there's no other team, then I guess like that's what we have to do. So we pray that, and we'd speak to Pastor Sam at the time, and he said, well, yeah, if you've got to go to this team, there's no other team, then, Pastor Jacob's church is there for you. So he's like, I'm happy for you to go there if that's where you have to go. And we're like, okay, then. So a lot of our marriage was kind of just like, okay, we'll go there. And then we were in the Gold Coast for, I think, 3 or 4 years, I think his contract was. So I've just moved. We're a year married. I've just left my job. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I'll just have a baby then. I've got nothing else to do. Well, maybe we'll just start having a family. And that's kind of, then we had Lennox, and then Lani was, I think, 2 years into that team in the Titans, and then I was pregnant with Millie, so we had our second baby on the way. And then things started to change at the Titans, and then again, like a lot of what our life was and revolved around was very heavily dictated by where he was and what team he was playing in. And then at that time, Titans kind of were trying to get rid of him, and his manager was advising all these things. And he was like, if you don't move or leave, your career is going to end basically. And he was only 26 at the time, I think, 26 or 27. So he still had plenty more years to play. So then again, like we then had to move to the UK. So it's kind of been like this. Like our marriage at the start was very like, okay, like we can do this. And then you feel like, all right, I can move to the Gold Coast. It's just an hour flight from my mum from Sydney. And, looking back now, I'm thinking that was nothing. Like, that was such a little baby thing for me to think that that was a huge thing. Living now in the UK, I'm like, how I laugh at that some, but it's just funny. Like, yeah, we get through it, and then when we had to leave the Gold Coast, I was devastated. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Our yeah, marriage and, like, with the kids, it's just it's been yeah, I think the first 5 years was a bit tricky, like, trying to just cope with the big changes, and then when we
Yeah.
kind of felt like we were coping, and then something else would happen, and then we'd have to move again, and it definitely made us stronger as a husband and wife in our
Yeah.
marriage,
Yeah.
and the kids were Lennox doesn't remember. He just come along with the ride. They're good travelers, I guess. That's what's helped them.
Yeah.
But yeah, rugby definitely, yeah, prioritized and dictated his life. I don't think too much about myself, how it's helped me or changed me in any certain way, but definitely in with Lani's career, yeah, it was a wild first 5 years, I think, of our marriage.
Yeah. And now because you guys are living in United Kingdom,
Mhm,
excuse me, I wanted to ask, how did the whole transition, like the challenge, did you have
mhm,
any challenges like moving from Australia and now in UK? Did you come across any challenges with the whole transition with
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think only just more recently we're starting to see the light and we're starting to feel more settled now. Like I said, like we went to the Gold Coast and that was only supposed to be a 3, 4 year plan back to Sydney. We always kept our home in Sydney, just rented out because we were always planning to go back. When we had to make the move to the UK, it was only supposed to be a 2 year thing. There was a 2 year contract. Once that was done, we're going to come back because we kept all of our stuff in storage. We kept our things because that was always our plan. Like that was what's going to happen. And I think in a way that kind of comforted me. I was just like, okay, well, I can convince myself that this will just be a 2 year holiday and I can, experience this, even though it popped up a couple of times while we're at the Titans, that this was going to be a likely possibility that we were going to have to move to the UK because there was no other teams that were coming through. And then I remember the first mention of it, I was like, absolutely not. Like I'm not going. Like I'm not going there. And then well, okay, we'll keep looking. And then we actually had Pastor Timothy Lee from Singapore over with us in the Gold Coast this weekend. And we were at the point where Lani's manager said that you have no options. If you don't take this, you will have nothing left. Because the coach has already told Lani if you don't leave, you're never gonna get played again. And his value
Mm,
just kept dropping and dropping. Like no, he wasn't playing many games, no teams really wanted him. So we were just talking to Timothy Lee about it. We're like, oh, this is our situation. And he said, well, he goes, "The only church that I can recommend to you if you do have to go to the UK," he goes, "it's Pastor John Hemus's church." And he goes, "I don't know and I can't recommend anyone else, but he's the only one that I know. They have a really good church and he's a missionary church from Antioch, who's under Chester, right?" And so I was like, okay, because our only condition was as long as we had a church to go to, that was our only thing that we had.
yeah.
I just said, Lord, if it's your will, just make sure there's a church for us. So we went and had a look and it was 15 minutes away from where we were going to move. Anyway, so we moved over thinking it was going to be a 2 year thing and we're here 6 years later. The hardest thing was trying to accept, I think, that it wasn't a 2 year thing. We had COVID the year that we moved. My daughter was born in the March of that 2020, of that year of COVID. So the night that we were discharged from hospital was our first night of lockdown. So I didn't know anyone. I had not met anyone yet. It was a struggle. Like when we first landed, because Lani had to come early because he had to get straight into training. My dad flew over with me. I was, I think, 7.5 months pregnant. Lennox was 1. So my dad flew with us to make sure we were there okay and help me. On the night that I landed, I hemorrhaged. And I think it was from just the flying and the stress. So I was bedridden in the hospital for about 2, 3 weeks. And then the doctor said they couldn't understand why I kept hemorrhaging, but they said if it happens again, we have to take the baby out. So Millie got taken out, I think six weeks early. So we were in and out of hospital basically for the first 2 months of us moving to this country. So it was already like the worst. I was just like, I don't know anyone here. I would just love anyone to come and visit me, but I didn't know anyone. I had no one's number. No one knew me. And then now we've got this like COVID crisis and everyone's like, oh, we can't come and visit anyone. But I was desperate for anyone just to come and see us. Like, I was like, I don't care, just please come over. But, people don't know you and they don't know like how you are if they don't want to overstep your boundary. We struggled with that for a good 6 months. And then by the time churches started opening up, things started to lift and it felt better. But we just kept feeling like we try to make it home here, but I knew in the back of my mind, I still had plan A, that home was still back in Sydney, because I was like, "Well, how can you try and be comfortable and live here in the UK and try and make the most of it and try like because we were getting involved and we were trying to serve and we were just trying to be available in church, but also we were trying to also then keep our option open that we were still going to possibly go back to Australia. And I remember just thinking, I feel like I'm torn all the time. Like me and Lani were just struggling a lot, like just torn between both aspects. Like we want to do this, but then we also want to do this. And we spoke to our pastor and he was like, you have to make a choice. He was like, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I can't tell you, but you'll have to decide for yourself. And whether you commit to here, he's like, you've got to cut that tie and that option off because you can't be torn constantly between the two. You'll be stuck like this forever. So I was like, we need to make a decision. Like, I can't live like this anymore. And once we decided to put our house up on the market in Australia and Sydney, that's when I really started to see things starting to lift and feel easier and feel like this is actually hopeful. I can feel that what's happening here now, I'm a part of this. And I felt it like it was the first step of this could be home for the next 5 years, maybe be for the rest of my life. But it
Yeah.
felt like it was God's will and I had peace finally. And that was when I just knew like I was resisting so much. And when I finally was just like, we are going to have to commit to here because I know that I don't have peace about leaving here right now in the UK. It did help as well with the fact that in lockdown, all of the birth and register death offices were all closed in the UK. So like any baby that was born in COVID never got a birth certificate for like a whole year. So when because Lani ended up losing he didn't play for Warrington Wolves anymore. He played a couple of games and then he kind of got pushed out. And we would have definitely got on the first plane back to Australia at that point. But we couldn't leave. We couldn't leave because Miller didn't have any proof that she existed. We couldn't get a birth certificate. And in hindsight now, I'm like, I would have left for sure. But because we didn't have that one piece of paper, we were stuck here. So that kind of just was like, well, we can't leave. So we might as well just get on with it and just start to get involved and make the most of it while we're here because we can't go anywhere else. And then, yeah, when we sold our house, that was definitely when I started to see things just
Mm,
open up for us and just feel a little bit more like things are possible here for us, if
yeah.
that makes sense.
Wow. And now 'cause,
It's a
Lani
lot.
is, sorry, that's alright. I mean, then now Lani is not he's not playing anymore?
Mm.
Is he playing or is he
Yeah.
working full time now?
No, so we just have normal jobs now. We're just like normal people. That was part of our first year was really hard. Yeah. He played his last game and he never knew that that was ever going to be his last ever professional game.
Yeah,
They were trying to still play games during COVID, like in lockdown, but with no fans at the stadium. They were trying to do it in the restrictions of COVID, but then like you were allowed to like tackle each other, but you couldn't like shake each other's hand when you scored a try because of COVID. So
yeah,
they were trying to like make loopholes to keep the game going, but it eventually they just cut it because they just said we can't on the basis of COVID. Like, and then they got put on like furlough government money. So anyway, and then it was just kind of like Lani was like the last one in, first one out the door kind of thing. And
mm,
then they were just like, we're going to have to let you go because there's no
mm,
games that are getting played. We can't afford to keep you. He come as like a marquee like signing over. So yeah, he played his last game not ever knowing that that was ever going to be his last game of his career. And then yeah, he just works a normal job now. He did a lot of work in like school and like sports coaching and that,
that's
but he's
excellent.
now yeah, he works as an enforcement officer now. So he just works a normal full-time 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job. Yeah.
It's amazing. And now how long you guys have been in United Kingdom now? How
It's
long
6
you
years
been
now.
in?
Yeah,
6 years, yeah,
it's 6 year. We moved here in February 2020, and then my daughter was born in that March
yeah.
of 2020. So I know however old she is how long we've been here.
And then you guys are settled in now
Yeah,
and you love United Kingdom. You live there now and
yeah,
you love it now, the
I
country,
do,
yeah?
yeah.
Yeah, that's
100%, yeah.
amazing.
It's definitely home. Yeah, we've been able to buy our house here finally, last year. We're definitely settled here. We do love it here.
That's awesome. Thanks for that, Kenina. Sorry, I have a few more questions I wanted to ask. Looking back on your journey, I mean, we've already mentioned that the advice that you would give to a young woman if they wanted to take up maybe not just just rugby, but any kind of sport. Looking back on everything that you've experienced and what you've shared to me today, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? And what do
Mm,
you wish that young Kenina knew then that you know now? What advice would you give to
yeah.
your young 20s, your young 20-year-old self?
I think looking back now, definitely I wish I was I don't know how to say it, like, I wish I was better with my parents in my relationship with my parents. I look back sometimes and I regret, like I said, I really felt in my heart like I'm gonna quit rugby. I never once talked to them about it. I just did it. And I look back at that and I should have spoken to them about it. I know now, like I've explained it to my parents now and they understand, but I think I would have tried to speak more, I think, to my parents and be more open and honest about things with my parents. I think I wanted to make them proud and to like always do the right thing for sure. And the reason why I can say that is because I look at Bibi now, my sister, and there's a 10-year gap between us, and I see how she is with my parents and how she communicates with them. And I think I lacked a lot of that communication. I think as a daughter, and I think as a firstborn, you just try so hard to please and, like, do the right thing, and you don't wanna
Yeah,
tell them anything that would make you look bad. I think definitely that in my walk with the Lord, I think some of the things that I used to care about, I wish that I didn't care so much about those things now. Like, you want to keep friends and you wanna keep those around you and you wanna do what they're doing and you wanna hang out with them and it does feel like it's cool, and I look back and I'm like, "No, those things weren't cool." I just wish that I'd been more involved in, like, youth or got more involved in some sort of ministry where serving or something where I could have focused more of my attention in my spare time and investing more in those things because those things eternal rewards, like, those things you're laying up in heaven. So I wish that I was doing more serving. I think I wasted a lot of time, and I wish that I had committed more of myself to not just being a Sunday a Sunday person or, you know, a here or a there person. And I think I wish that I would have taken my relationship with the Lord more seriously. Because I think, yeah, I had known Lani. I knew enough, but I wasn't really developing my own relationship and strengthening it enough for myself,
mm,
I guess. Time, yeah.
yeah,
Investment, yeah.
not wasting time. Okay, like Kenina,
Mhm.
who would in your family that would be influential in your life?
Yeah.
I know some people say their
Definitely.
parents, or it could be a
Mhm.
sibling. So yeah,
Mhm. Definitely my dad, for sure. Like, I know a lot
why?
of my hard decisions that I made growing up
Yeah,
as a young adult and as
yeah,
a teenager. You know, you got like whatever like some people liken like a God conscience to, or like, you know, your conviction, like, you know, things that I definitely had the voice of my dad in my head.
yeah,
And I thank God for it because it definitely helped keep me out of trouble, and whether it was just the fear of my dad, but in that he did try and he did teach us a lot growing up, and I learnt what the fear of the Lord was because of my dad, and I know that that's kept me a lot. I can look back and think like, thank God my dad tried his best to teach us these things. So I do like give my dad a lot of credit for how we've like in our teenage years we've done our things, but
yeah,
I always knew that Jesus was real, and I always knew that this was real, and I couldn't deny it, and I couldn't find anything in me to ever walk away from it, and it always kept me close with my relationship with Lani. Like, we were kind of like friends, and I think that he wanted to date and, like, be my boyfriend and stuff, and I always knew, well, if you don't I know that if you don't come to church and you don't know who the Lord is, there's no point in me even being your friend or even, like, consider dating you. And I knew that because my dad had taught me that from a young age. So I know that my dad instilled a lot of things in me that I always kept in my heart and I always knew. And I thank him for a lot of how obviously it's all glory to the Lord, thank you. Like, but he definitely has steered us on a good path with what he knew, but like because he didn't have parents that showed him. So I think he did the best with what he knew how. He knew the word and he just tried to teach that to us. And I can recall a lot of things that my dad told us and helped us understand when we were kids. And I still look at that in the way that I can recognize how I parent my kids. It's kind of like not like for like with my dad, but definitely closer to what how my dad kind of taught us and parented us. And, you know, a lot of what he did worked. And I thank God because I'm still here today in the
yeah.
kingdom and serving the Lord. And I definitely thank my dad for that for sure.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Kenina. And Kenina, as we conclude this episode,
Mhm.
Was there a scripture that has helped carried you through the different seasons of your life's challenges? And what did this scripture mean? Or even a story in the Bible that's inspired you, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, there's a scripture where it's like all things work together for our good to those who are called according to his purpose. And if you can trust in the Lord and know that and believe that, then you can really look at every situation that you're going through and that whatever you're facing, because I trust in what he says and I trust that he will lead my, and as long as I'm committing everything and I'm surrendering and I'm yielding everything to him, and I recognize that his plans are greater than my own and that his way is always better than my ways and his thoughts are better than my own thoughts. And whatever my expectation looks like, his would always far exceed that. So when I look at situations where I'm like, how does my flesh hurt so much here? And how does this hurt me so much to do this? And why can I not just be removed out of this? Why can't you just take me out of this and make this better? Or, you would think that in your mind you can understand, well, that would make sense if you would just do this. But if you really believe that even this situation is working together for my good, that even that job that you really want and you go for, but you don't get it, you still have to believe, well,
Mm,
thank God that even that must not be for my good then. Me living
yeah.
so far away and doing these things that for this time right now, I have to believe that it is for my good, that, and maybe I don't understand what that looks like and why that is right now. I have to believe that he knows better than me. And who am I to question that? If I am living according to what his word says and I'm trusting in him and I just want his will for my life, for my family and in my marriage. And if that means that it looks like this right now, then I have to trust that that's what that is. And that's what's going to
Mm,
work for my good, and I believe that, and I've had to
yeah.
just be reminded of that a lot through what we're going, because you don't have to fully understand something just to be obedient. You don't have to
Right.
fully have all the answers, and you may never get the answers to why things happen the way that they are. But if I'm obedient and I can know what God is saying and who He is, and every situation I get brought through, and if it means that I become more like Him or I know Him more than what I did before, then thank God that is for my good as well. When the Israelites were brought through the Exodus, the word that is used in the Bible it's yada, and that means to intimately know the Lord. And when they were brought through the Exodus and they were brought through all of that, they knew Him differently than what they did before. They had only just previously known Him from what their fathers had told them of stories from Abraham and all the fathers of that. That's what they knew of what God was. Through this situation, the Exodus, they saw him and they knew him. They saw the miracles of what he did in the plagues and parting the seas and being a pillar of fire and leading them. And they had their own real, true, intimate experience, and they knew him because they saw him. And if I can go through all these things and then at the end of it, if it's just that I know him and I'm closer to him, then that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's all that I want. If I can just be more like him and I could in every situation and know that everything is going to work, it all works out for my good. And I have to know and trust that.
It's awesome. That's beautiful, Kenina. Thank you for sharing that. You're heavily involved in your church, correct?
Yeah. So we're part of our leadership team at our church. We've got a really good team, a strong team. And so we're part of that. Lani looks after the men's ministry. He's also just become a licensed minister a
Yeah.
couple of months ago. I can't remember when, but he's now, yeah, a licensed minister. He helps and teaches in Sunday school. We're both part of the worship team. I lead our youth. We do what we can. We
Yeah.
try, yeah, we definitely serve in our church for sure.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Kenina, I was really inspired by your story and, you sharing, your journey from your rugby transitioning into now ministry and now living in United Kingdom. It's amazing what God has done for you and Lani and your little family. So, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your story and your journey today with us with She's More Than Ruby's podcast. And also, I just want to also thank to all our listeners for tuning in to She's More Than Ruby's this morning. I pray that this episode has encouraged and inspired you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, and stay connected to future episodes. Thank you so much, Kenina, for
Thank you for
coming on
having me.
to She's More Than Ruby's podcast.
Thank you.
God bless.
God bless you.